Grand Rising, everyone. This is Ron. Saturday, February 7th, 2026, a little after 10 a.m. We'll go ahead and get started. I've been trying to do a better job of recapping, okay, what we talk about. Sometimes I get caught up in the conversation, in the discussion rather, and I forget I need to be taking notes sometime. But I thought it was very interesting on Monday. We talked about the teachers, what it means to be a teacher, what talk about that being a relationship or I mean a responsibility rather than a title of any kind. And we talked about relationships that we all have together and how special that is and how important that is and the energy that comes from it. So I thought that was not only beneficial, but I th think a lot about the things we put in the macro and what those things lead to as far as for everybody else. We talked about the concept of I am, which again I thought was very beneficial, and we I think Audrey talked about I am being olive mim and the flow of water and what all that means and linking all of that together as to who we are and what we are and the relationships not only that we have with each other, but the relationship that we have, an obligation we have as far as everybody else goes out there who may or may not hear these videos, but have opportunity to grasp whatever they're seeking from the macro. So I thought that was very interesting. Uh, and again, if I try to do a recap of some kind and I omit something that you think was extremely important or that you want more information on, please feel free to bring it up. And if I don't remember it, I'm sure someone else will. Okay. Any questions about this so far? Okay, so I'll ask then, are there any questions, anything that may have gotten your attention this last week? Any questions and or comments, any observations?
Right. I want to say something about teacher before we go to that point, okay?
Okay,
Um, One of the things that came up after we finished talking about that on Monday is this. When I was trying to explain the difference between a secular teacher and a spiritual teacher, um, I want to give another example, if I may. um, when when you are taught to do something, for example, you're taught to be um, a mechanic. And simply because you were taught to be a mechanic, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be teaching people to become mechanics. And that's one of the things I wanted to reiterate about spirituality. Simply you simply because you teach spirituality and you're receiving the teaching of spirituality, it doesn't mean that you are going to be a teacher in the same vein as the one who has taught you. Is that clear?
yes,
And I think it's important to embrace that. And I will reiterate something that was said on Monday. It's important to embrace that because we have been told by the church, especially, that anybody can be a teacher, when that is not true. Um, you may be able to teach some things, but you're not able to teach everything. Even we are not able to teach everything. So I want to leave it with this, unless there are further questions about it. Embrace those who teach, as we do. Excuse me. Embrace those who teach, respect what is taught, and respect who is teaching. And understand that religious teaching is ego driven most of the time, if not all times. Spiritual teaching is never driven by the ego. It is done out of duty and responsibility. Um, so anyway, that's all I want to say about it. Unless there are some questions or comments in regards to it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about what Pastor just said? Do we have any questions about anything? Hey, Pastor, did you have somewhere you wanted to take us this morning?
Yeah, I wanted to look at something, unless there's someone else, of course, has to place else. I want to look at Second Chronicles 7 and 14. And I have specific reasons for wanting to look at that. I think it was on Wednesday. That scripture came to me, and I could not get it out of my mind. And when I looked at it, I saw some things in there that I had not seen before. And granted, now this particular scripture has always been puzzling to me because of how it is written. If my people, which are called by my name, this is the Lord speaking. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That's not the way that scripture should have been written. Translated, because when it says I will hear from heaven, that's not there at all. And this idea of my people who call by my name, that is different than what we have been told. That we have been, because when it says if my people, it's right, if my nation that embraces my reputation or my character will humble themselves. That's different than what we have been told that this is about. So what I see in this particular verse, of course, there are other verses attached to it, but my major focus is to 7 and 14. And what I see in that, as I have been shown in the scriptures, that this is talking about us. We've said before that the scriptures it actually was written by our people in a Kabbalah. And these scriptures that are written are about us, even though they have been manipulated by others. Because of our recognition and awareness of theocasic consciousness, we are able to see into the written word and understand more clearly what is being said here, even though it was manipulated. So I also know that the scriptures are written as an explanation as to who we are. It shows us who we are. It shows us our relationship to our Creator. It also shows us how to move out of this, out of the bondage of religion and out of the bondage of greed and materialism into a spiritual space so that we can not only perceive who we were created to be, but we can live as we were created to live. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So the writings are extremely important when it comes to the journey that we are on. So if we look at this particular verse, the way that it really should have been translated, we see some differences in it. And if a nation which embraced my character, which embraced my reputation, which embraced my honor, shall humble, meaning that if you become humble, then there are some other things you must do before you are able to truly embrace who you are. Now, why am I looking at it from this perspective? Because I believe that everything that's in Scripture was written for now.
Yeah.
I don't believe that it was written for 50 years ago. I don't believe that it was written for 100 years ago. I believe that it was written for now. Because if you read with with an eye of understanding, what you see is a mention of what's going on right now in relationship to how we are supposed to live our lives. What I mean by that is this was not written for a period in enslavement. This was written for a period when the children of Cabelon would free themselves from the bondage that they were placed in, as well as the bondage that they perpetuated by embracing a society that is religious and a society that has a government that that works hand in hand with religion. And in order for us to be free from that, we must understand what is written. It is with humility that we change. When we started this journey, we understood that we were in the dark about who we are. If we did not believe that, we would never have started the journey to search for an understanding of who we are and what is our purpose for being here. And this has really changed my life in many ways because I was at a state, and quite frankly, it came back to me a couple of days ago. And I will say to you, quite frankly, where I was at times was why in the hell were we created in the first place? Why you just didn't leave us alone? You know, why were we created to live in this vast cesspool of nothingness and with the most brutal people that's ever known being in charge and controlling, manipulating us. So why you just didn't leave us alone? Well, that didn't last too long because on this journey we have learned that we are God, and being a God, we are a nation that was brought into existence by the one who was never created, but created everything. Excuse me. The word Lord is Jehovah, or it is the self-existent one. Excuse me just a moment. Let me clear my throat. Okay, the self-existent one. So the self-existent one is saying, for my nation, my people, what is being said here? You belong to me. You have lost your way, but you belong to me. And you have embraced my reputation, meaning that you have embraced the reality of who you are. However, you have not come to grips with that right now. And in order for you to do that, you're going to have to humble yourself. You can't be haughty. You can't exalt yourself above others. You have to humble yourself and recognize that you have a glimpse of who you are, but you don't really know who you are. And with this humility, you must meditate. You must focus. You must shift your mind from the distractions around you and seek my countenance, seek my face. You must have a desire to know who I am. You must have a desire to embrace my countenance, to to see who I am, and when you are able to recognize who your Creator is, it is then that you realize that you have to turn away from your wicked ways. In other words, you got to turn back to me and the ways that you were trained, that you were taught rather, that you were taught to follow, or the principles you were taught to follow. And in doing so, what you are actually doing is turning away from wickedness, and you're not seeking to travel a journey or a road of wickedness any longer. And then it does not say I here, and then you implied as you will hear from heaven. You will have a perception of what enlightenment is. You will receive a perception of what light is, and you will forgive your entanglements. In other words, you have to forgive yourself for the wicked ways that you've embraced, the wicked journey that you were traveling. You have to forgive yourself for that. And you say, well, what wicked ways? Well, when we talk about wickedness in a spiritual sense, we are talking about the wickedness that were engaged in when we were teaching people to be Christians. It was unripened for us to do that, but we didn't know any better. We were teaching people to remain in a state of bondage and adhere to the principles that this false God was giving us or was teaching us. And in doing so, we would believe that there is a heaven and a hell that we are going to. However, the principles that we were taught that would keep us from this heaven or hell, those same principles were not being kept by the ones who taught us. The ones who taught us were totally antithetical to the principles of righteousness, to the principles that we were told will lead you to heaven. As a matter of truth, the ones who taught us this had embraced and still embraces the things that they told us would lead you to hell. Yet, they had put themselves up as the God who made the decisions about who went to heaven and who went to hell. And in doing so, what we had done without really knowing it, we had submitted to men who did not have our best interests at heart. These men who did not have our self-interest at heart, these men were rather purveyors of bondage. They are the ones who used us to get what they wanted out of us and never saw us as being humans. And that is not a bad thing. They projected to us as being primates or being gorillas or monkeys, but that's not what they meant. They knew that we were not humans. They knew we were gods. And they did everything they could to eliminate that from our consciousness. They did everything they could to convince us that our melanated skin was a curse. Everything they could to convince us that our minds were not strong enough to do anything other than to serve them, and that we were brought into this earth to be servants. These are the things that Christianity taught us. These are the things that Islam, that Judaism taught us. And we bought into it. However, now that we are on this journey, we're beginning to see that the answers to all of our questions are right before us, and they being available to us. What was the conclusion if we do all of these things? And it says that, and your consciousness will be healed. Your mind will no longer be sick. Your consciousness will not be one that is governed by enslavement or manipulation. The healing of the consciousness means that you will see in the mirror who you are. And the mirror is not the one that's over your sink in the bathroom. The mirror that you will see who you are is written in these words. And these words were manipulated not only to control us, but to convince us that we are not divine at all, to convince us that we are quite the opposite, that we are a group of animals without any mental capacity at all. Now, what better to do to a people who you know are gods than to manipulate them into believing that they are nothing, while at the same time you are using their divinity to build everything you want and to create everything that gives your life comfort. You are using their divinity to project yourself as being superior to everyone. You are understanding who they are, and you are using the understanding that you have of who they are to describe yourself. That you are the one who is civilized, when even today you still aren't civilized. And there are some things I can point to that speaks very loudly to the lack of a silver mind that in these people who are in control. There is no way that you can be civilized and do children the way that these children were done in the Epstein files. And though you may think that this is political, it really isn't. It is above politics. This is showing the true nature of those who are of a European mindset and the magnitude of protection that they are receiving simply says that there is no difference than what we are no different than we were when we came out of the caves. We just dress differently, we speak differently, but there is no difference in our attitude. We do the same thing that we've always done, and nobody can stop us because we will kill them if they make any efforts to do that. This is the attitude that that's in charge of. It projects itself as being in charge of mankind. Yet we see in this 14th verse in that 7th chapter of what it takes for us to heal the consciousness, meaning that to give us a sense of awareness of the reality of what is, a reality of who we are, and how things were intended to be from the beginning, as opposed to how they are at the present time. And it's funny how when we look at this, it says that when you do this, when the land is healed, what happens? Your eye is open, your ears are attentive, and the meditation is heard. It is rewarded. So, what is it saying? Right now, your eye is open. Our eye is open, and we are hearing differently than we've ever heard. The things that we talk about, like, for example, Ron mentioned in a recap that we had spoken of I am on Monday, and the responses to this I am did not come from flesh and blood. It came from the Akashic consciousness. And when we think about Akashic consciousness, we have a tendency to equate it with our secular understanding of philosophy or things that we call deep or complicated. The Akashic consciousness is extremely simple. Simple to the extent that when Audrey mentioned the I am and the vibrations of it, that was not flesh and blood. That was Akashic consciousness. When we talked about, or when the Creator showed me that we had to be careful how we use this in English language because it is spellbound, and the idea of speaking about trying something or speaking about needs, using words that lends themselves to a bondage of staying in bondage as opposed to freeing us from it. I want you to do blah blah blah. Well, if I have a want, that means that I'm saying I have a lack without saying the word lack. So when the Creator showed us that, that's Akashic consciousness. When we talked about what today is spiritually and in this earth, it's simple. And the simplicity of it all is what makes it so elusive. Yet, when we embrace it, it makes all the sense in the world. So right now, we are at this state where we are in a continuous, hearing a continuous message. You are my nation. You have embraced my reputation. You've embraced my characteristics. You are my characteristic. But in order for you to be who you were created to be, you have to humble yourself. Why would humility be there? The reason humility is there is because this is an arrogant society that we live in. This is a society that sees humility as a weakness. And until you humble yourself, you cannot be submissive to who you are. And being submissive to who you are does not mean that you're weak. Being submissive to who you are means that you are seeking the strength of your existence. Means that through the art of meditation, through the desire of seeing with the spiritual eye, the countenance, the face, the essence of our Creator. This in itself is strong enough to convince us, to show us that where we were is evil, and where we are supposed to be is actually in a place of enlightenment, and being attentive not to the contradiction, but being attentive to the Akashic consciousness. And when we do that, we begin to see things that we never saw before. We were told that you're supposed to forgive others for their entanglements, but we are also supposed to forgive ourselves for entangling ourselves, because we, in many cases, we consciously entangle ourselves with the rudiments of this world for the express purpose of elevating ourselves above our fellow man, are not realizing that that is exactly the playbook for those who seek to remain in control. So here we are at a space where we are still struggling with the healing of our consciousness. We are still struggling with that aspect of healing our consciousness. Now, there are other things in this chapter that I would like to discuss at a later time, because it is filled with an understanding of who we are. And all of this started with Solomon building the house. Solomon means peace. All of this started with that. Solomon building the house. The house that this is referencing is you. Is the place, the abode of who you are. The house is your body that you live in, and the destruction of the body that you live in is not just the physical structure of it. It is the energy that it gives off when other people encounter it. It is the expressions on your face, or it is your responses, either verbally or through action, that this is speaking of. So we will get into that. But the main thing I wanted us to see, and quite frankly didn't have any idea how I was going to approach this, the main thing is that I want us to see this 14th verse for what it is, and the verses around it that brings it to life for us. At this point, I suppose I need to stop and ask if there are any questions or comments, as well as are you able to see the message that is in this 14th verse.
Pastor, I have
This
a
is
question. I
Uh-huh.
yield.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Grand Rising family and honor to the ancestors. Can you, Pastor Jay, can you give me your definition of humility?
Of what?
Please.
Melanie?
Humility.
Humility. Oh,
Yes, sir.
when I talk about being humble, I'm talking about not exalting yourself above other people. To my understanding, humility is to have a attitude of I don't want to use the word subdued. Help me, somebody. Um,
I think of it as the recognition that there's something greater than what you already have. You know, you see yourself as this and that, or I have learned this, but this is greater. This is something more
uh,
valuable to me than what I thought I had that I thought was valuable.
um, on the heels of that, Ron, is recognizing that your submission is not to those who have enslaved you. It's humbling yourself before the one who created you, meaning that you're recognizing, as Ron said, that there is something greater than you. And that being greater than you is the thing that you are more submissive to. And you get your direction from it without um, believing or feeling that you are above other people, feeling that you are superior to anyone. An example of that is what we talked about the teachers. We when people say that I'm a teacher too, well, that's ego. But when you are a true teacher, especially spirituality, you are humble, and your humbleness um, moves you to submit to the teachings of others as well as to the presence of the Akashic consciousness. So I know I'm talking a lot about around this word humility or humble, but that's my sense of being humble. It is not weakness at all. It takes strength to be humble.
Yeah.
Audrey?
I think also, oh, I yield. Go ahead, Audrey.
Grand Rising, everybody. Um, it makes me think about leading from behind, um, in the sense that you don't have any pride or ulterior motives, but you know who you are and you stay on the path.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Oh, go ahead.
Anyone else?
So I see what Audrey is saying because I talked to you guys, to family, about that position I applied for and didn't get it, and I'm glad I didn't get it. But anyway, when Audrey said lead from behind, I still lead on that in that agency where I work. I still lead on the board where I work. I don't have to say anything in meetings. The person who did get the position, they always look at me and they look for my approval. So again, it's about leading from behind. You don't have to be in the front. And that, to me, I don't try to supersede anything they say. I am humble. And that's why I asked the question about humility, Pastor Jay, because when I realize that I am you and you are me, attitude changes. It changes the energy. It changes where you are at that time or anywhere, basically. So that's why I ask about humility. And thank you for what you just said.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you. The idea of humility. When Audrey said leading from behind, you've heard me say that I'm not a king, I'm a kingmaker. If I made efforts to be a king, then I would not be true to who I was brought in the earth to be. My ego would be the thing that's driving me to become a king. When I understand I'm a kingmaker, what am I saying to you? When history is written, these people who have been placed in these positions that they never would have if they did not have a kingmaker behind them. Their names will appear in history. However, the way they got to those places, the name of the one who got them there would not appear in history. It doesn't matter. What matters is knowing who you are and whose you are. So this idea of humility does not seek recognition; it seeks to fulfill its calling. It seeks to live according to the principles of the womb out of which it sprung. I'm done.
I guess on the heels of Evelyn's question, because I agree with that, because I see humility too, but in what I was going to say, if you look at this 12 through 18, uh, doesn't this kind of remind you of marriage vow? Doesn't it remind you of something coming together, or the humility being your masculine and your feminine side coming together, your seeing this from both sides, if you will, the masculine and the feminine, and recognizing that this is something a lot greater. And look at who I am. Because I think about, if you look at the history of us, uh, and what God has looked like for us for generations, this white guy sitting on this big throne, this pillow up in the sky, and looking down on us, and we fearing him. And look at the journey that we have come to recognizing that all the falseness of what we've been taught and who we are and what we are. How humbling can that be? You don't see that if you're not seeking to be humble, because you have to move yourself out of the way. And those those actions that we have been taught to be in religion, as far as seeking this and seeking that and wanting this title or that title, all of those have to be purged away or pushed away. And you make room for where we are now. How grand is it that the Creator is showing us this at this place and time? So this is a coming together, that you're seeing yourself at a greater place or greater understanding than you ever have in life. And you're seeing yourself for all of mankind. So there's nothing more humbling to me than where we are now, looking at this and gaining understanding of this. And not only will it, I think, make us stronger as a unit, but it bonds man even stronger as to who he is when he chooses to open his eye. But I just see this as sort of a coming together of self, like
In addition to that, Ron, I see this humility um, being different than the humility we thought we had.
yeah.
We were actually humbling ourselves to those with a European mindset, as opposed to being humble to our Creator. We just learned what humility to our Creator is. This submissiveness to our Creator, this humbleness to our Creator, it shows us how strong we are, shows us the strength and power that we are. Um, other than, but the humility to anything else speaks to not necessarily weakness, but ignorance as to who we are.
I guess I agree with that. The marriage part came into me. If you think about yourself, whether you're male or female, uh, the humility comes in that this masculine part of you has to shrink. It has to see, oh my God, look at this. I've seen this all wrong. The feminine side is the part to me that also has to have some self-forgiveness because she has shrinking away, not by choice, but by being forced to do so. And when you see this, you say, okay, Lord, I see who I am now. Show me how to be what I'm supposed to be. So that's the two sides of you to me that comes together and you rise up to be what you're supposed to be. So that's why I mentioned marriage vows. This is everything, every portion of you coming together and dispelling all of that is unworthy or that has not been of value as you thought it would be, and seeing it for what it truly is, and now submitting yourself to it.
I I see that the marriage vows also, when you humble yourself, this idea of um, recognizing the humility of femininity and masculinity without even knowing what that means,
Yeah.
but you know it's necessary. The what it does to me is it consummates um, a marriage between our Creator and us.
Yes.
We become intimate with it. The submissiveness of it, the humility of it, is what give us the depth of intimacy that is necessary in order for us to consummate this relationship.
That's the word, intimacy. Yes.
And the consummation of this relationship, that is when we begin to hear from or through the Akashic consciousness, which means that the consummation of this relationship impregnates us, and we birth things. We birth an understanding of the wisdom uh, that we saw but never really understood, because all we could see was darkness because we didn't understand it, and we thought that that lurking in the darkness were those things that were seeking to harm us, when in reality, what lurks in the darkness is wisdom itself. And it dispels the fear that has been instilled in us of the darkness. We've been made afraid of the darkness because of what has taken place in this material world under the cloak of darkness. When in spirituality, um, um, darkness is simply uh, the the aspects of wisdom about ourselves and our Creator that we don't understand yet. So this humility that we're talking about, this meditation, frees us from this fear of darkness and helps us to see that there is nothing that can bring harm to us. This fear of darkness has been instilled in us by virtue of what has taken place in the nights. The clan coming in the middle of the night and dragging Emmett Till out of the house and murdering him. The church buildings that the Klan burned in the middle of the night. All of these things to cause us to fear the night, the darkness, without and in doing so, that fear of the darkness was transposed into a spiritual darkness that we did not understand, because we were taught that spiritual darkness was of the devil, was of the evil one. That's what we were taught in church. However, when we look at what the scripture says, especially in Isaiah, when it says, I created the night, the darkness. I created the light. I created the wisdom, and I created the understanding, is what it's actually saying. But in Christianity, it was not like that at all. So this consummation of marriage, this intimacy of the relationship, this understanding of the essence of our being, this seeking to labor under the power and strength of the one who created us, and the embracing of a truth that we may not be able to articulate, the embracing of a truth that we are experiencing, but we cannot necessarily see it. The sitting at the table, being fed from the table of truth, and not really knowing what we are receiving until we begin to open our mouth to teach or to raise questions or to interact with other people. All of these things are spoken to in this one verse when it talks about the humility of it all, humbling yourself.
Yeah.
I'm done. Questions, comments? Well, if there are no questions or comments, then I'm done with this 14th.
I think Audrey has
I,
something.
I have a comment.
Good, Audrey.
I hear what you're saying about the marriage. And I just wanted to add to that, though. This kind of dovetails to me back to that scripture where in Jeremiah, where he said, where it's written, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans for welfare and not calamity, to give you a future and hope." I feel like, the plan comes in the beginning, right? So I feel like what was meant for us has been there all along for generations. We just had to see it, and then take hold of it. So there is a covenant that's in place, but it's always been in place. We just had to see it and take hold of it. And I guess I'm seeing it as it's not a delayed thing like waiting to get married, if you see what I'm saying. It's just been there all along.
I
Do you
agree.
see what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's always been there.
When we talk about it as a marriage, it's like it has to come together over time. When all of it has been there in the same place all the time.
Whole time.
All the time. It's been there. And our experience of it, when we try to articulate it, we're doing it by virtue of using an example of a marriage, I suppose. Is that what you're saying, Audrey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pastor, can I say how I see it? I'm sorry. I yield, brother.
Go ahead.
No, I yield. Go ahead, Evelyn. DC. Go ahead. I yield.
I'm trying to see it as, thank you, brother. I'm trying to see it as the rich that you guys are talking about, but I see it as like having money in the bank and you don't know the PIN number, and then eventually it clicks. Okay, this is the PIN number. Now I have access to the treasure that I have that's waiting for me. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't, but it
Thank you.
resonates. It resonates. That's a good example.
You. Evelyn, are you done?
Evelyn?
Yes, I'm sorry, brother. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
no,
you.
no, 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 no. It's all good. It's all good. When Audrey mentioned about the verse, I know the plans that I have for you, what came to my spirit was to know. And I know we've talked about it in the past in terms of the Hebrew word yada is to know, to be a certain, to advise. But, when I look at that word know and where we are in the now, to know now is what's so pertinent. In the word know, there's the word now. And I believe that all of our spiritual enlightenment has always been there. And when we talk about humility for our ancestors, when we talk about humility for mankind, humanity, it is so, again, imperative that we're receiving it from the energy, from the vibrations, from our family, that we're seeing it in ways now where it's spiritual. So I think, again, when I hear the word no, I'm seeing it or I'm feeling it, that it's happening now, but it's always been there. And now we're seeing examples of how we are living in this world, but not of it in terms of how we react to things, but how we respond. And I'll just give an example, if I may. There, ISIS is, is here, there, and everywhere, and we see it. And some of us have experienced it in terms of observing and watching. And there was a police officer, who was pulled over by ICE. And when he was pulled over, he didn't identify himself as the captain, of the police, who's been, working in that role for about 12 years. But when he had to respond to the police officer, I truly believe it was the spirit that was in him, that was able to conduct himself in a way that he was able to have that encounter and maintain who he really was, in terms of the spirit man that he was. And so I think that, again, I'm just trying to say in a way, to know now is so imperative as we face the challenges that we deal with today, if that resonates. So I just wanted to respond to that because it goes back to who am I? And it goes back to I am because we are. So I wanted to share those thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you. This,
Uh,
let me say this, George, okay? This 14th verse speaks to every bit of that is always here. Because if it were not, then it would not say, and seek my face, seek my presence, desire my presence. It's saying it's here. However, you have to be humble and you have to seek my face. You have to meditate in order for you to realize it's already here. This verse does indeed speak to the presence of it at all times. Simply because we're not aware of it doesn't mean that it's not there or it's not here.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you guys. George?
Yeah,
good morning.
go ahead, G. Go Go ahead,
Okay,
Darrell.
thank you, GC out of Philly. On yesterday, Reverend Richard into the group. My friends and I, we were talking about the Tracy Morgan incident. He's a comedian, and he's a comedian that was involved in an accident with Walmart, and he got a big settlement from it. And he had an interaction with someone leaving a venue from his past. And I think it was someone from his past when he was a child that used to bully him. And in our conversation about that, it was a conversation based on humility, because, and what was said was, he could have handled that better. However, we were saying, or the individual was saying, that person just hasn't healed from that situation, and you can't put a time limit on healing. And someone else in the group said, well, just because he didn't take the high road in that case, that doesn't mean that tomorrow he may not reach out to that person and say, hey, man, how can I help you? Bada bing, bada boom. And someone said in the group, some people just don't know how to apologize. And the part two to this is, sometime this week, one of my coworkers came to me and said, hey, do you mind if I talk to you? And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And I don't know this. I know he's my coworker, but I don't know him. He said, I want to apologize to you. And I was like, what you talking about? He said, didn't they call you in the office because you left a pack of cigarettes in the truck? I said, yeah. He said, man, if I'd known that was you, I wouldn't have done that. And my response to him was, look, if you don't smoke, it's not a good, if you don't smoke, you don't want to be around a person that smokes. And I said, I understand, and I want to thank him for giving his apology, because I thought it was one of them white boys. And it's not like I gave it any thought or anything like that, but that's about the only time that if not the only time, it is the only time I actually experienced what forgiveness is. He apologized for it. I accepted his apology, and his apology gave some clarity to me, because I'm like, ain't no way in the world a brother or a sister gonna do this. Yet in humility, Reverend Richard into the group, how do you apologize when you've done something wrong? And I've heard Reverend Richard on several occasions apologize. Hey, I used to teach this, and I had to go back and get forgiveness and research some more. I've heard Reverend Richard, we went dialogue about something, and Nick had to come in and interpret something between Reverend Richard and I, and Reverend Richard said, hey, I want to apologize. So my question to the group is, by way of humility, being humble, how do you apologize when you've done wrong? Thank you.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't intend to do it.
Okay, that's your answer, Reverend Richard. And if that's the only one, that's just the only one. But nonetheless, though, thank you.
Now, if anybody have anything different than that, a different way of apologizing than verbalizing it, then please say so. Help me.
That's the same way I would
Well,
do
I
it.
mean, if you truly know who you are, it goes back to the same verse. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. So it's the same kind of thing. You have to find that place of humility and then be willing to actually say something to the person. Otherwise, you won't apologize. Apologies always come from humility, I think. Anyway,
I
that's
agree.
it.
Nick,
And on the heels of that, Pastor, I'm sorry, go
no, go
ahead.
ahead, Kathy.
No, I have a question, I guess, too, with us looking at language and the power in I am. Are we saying now, and again, I have another comment after this question is answered, something else I want to introduce on humility. Are we saying, because when I say I'm sorry, that hits differently for me now that I'm recognizing the power of I am. Can we not say I regret the misunderstanding, or I regret the words, I regret whatever has transpired, as opposed to the I'm sorry, or am I overthinking it?
No, you're not. When that came out of my mouth, just as you started speaking, I thought about what I said. That was simply out of habit, and that's the correction that I've been asking for to help us get beyond saying things like that. So I appreciate you recognizing and pointing that out, Kathy.
Thank you. And on the heels of that and talking about humility, the whole time we've been talking about this, the scripture that kept coming to me, so I ran to get the Bible out and look it up, is I must decrease so that you can increase. And that's John, the 3rd chapter. And but the thing that caught my attention is that is the 30th verse. But in that 29th verse, he says, he that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom which standeth and heareth him rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. This my joy, therefore, is fulfilled. And then it says, he must increase, but I must decrease. And then it goes on to talk about what that looks like. And so when I'm thinking of humility, and even using the example of what Audrey said about leading from behind, and Evelyn came back and gave a real life example of how she continues to lead from behind, that to me is the I, physical Kathy, decreasing so that the I am that I am can increase. Excuse me, I'm hoarse this morning. Can increase. So I guess my question becomes to the group, or my question for you, Pastor, is: can we open that scripture up at some point, because it goes right along with what Ron first said about the bridegroom and understanding the humility there and the decrease. He was describing decreasing on both sides. And when he was saying feminine and masculine energy coming together to make that one. But I found it interesting that is what that particular scripture about increase and decrease leads off with, is the bridegroom. And it is alluding to the point that this has always been there. But society, I feel, has taught us to go after the I. What have I, you as the individual, what have you accomplished? What are the things that you are seeking? What are you going after? And what we are learning to do now is get out of the I mode and to learn to live in the I am mode. And that changes everything. And so I just wanted to know if in the future we could look at that scripture.
Of course we can. Yes, by all means. It's ironic. Well, not ironic. It's something that we hadn't thought about, I suppose. How many times the example of a bridegroom or bride or a wedding is being used as an example to our relationship with the Creator and
Yeah.
how we perceive things. So absolutely we can.
What was that again, John? What, Kathy?
John, the 3rd chapter, and the bridegroom part starts at the 29th verse.
Okay.
I hadn't read the whole thing. I went straight to the 30th because what was coming to me as we were talking about humility is that it says he must increase, but I must decrease. And of course, we know the he and all of that is not really what's supposed to be there. But basically, that was hitting me when we were talking about what it means to have humility. And then when I started reading, I said, well, let me back up and see why it starts with that. The 29th verse starts off about the bride and the bridegroom. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so it's just, we are saying it, and it's been there all along. But I think we are awakening to the I am as opposed to the I that has got to decrease so that who I really am can increase. And I just wanted to share that thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kathy, thank you for mentioning about John, because I was jumping for joy when you said that about John. I must decrease, but I'm not worthy. Tie his shoelace. And when you were bringing all that out, I was saying to myself, man, I was just holding back and going to say the same thing that you just said, but not as way you said it. But I thank you. I thank you for bringing that out, honey.
Oh, you're welcome, Charles, and thank you.
This is Vermel. I have a question. In listening, is vulnerability the word for also humility?
I don't. You can be humble and not be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a conscious thing, I do believe.
Is a what? Say that again, Sage.
Conscience.
Okay.
I do not believe that you can travel this journey of knowing who you are without being vulnerable. We had to be vulnerable in order to see Christianity for what it is.
Okay.
If
So,
we had not been, we would have been defensive.
okay. So when we're talking about asking for forgiveness, in the case of what George was asking, not George from Philly, but the other George, is there vulnerability in going and I'm wondering how vulnerability ties in terms of being open to asking forgiveness. I guess that's what I'm asking.
If you're asking for forgiveness, you are vulnerable. You're
Okay.
opening yourself up. If you're not vulnerable, you're arrogant. You can't be vulnerable and be defensive with everything. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is an openness that allows you to look at all sides of things, especially when you're talking about spiritual vulnerability.
Staying with that, if it's not a weakness, and sometimes you are perceived as being arrogant, then that's just a misunderstanding between the two or whomever's involved?
No, I don't think it's a misunderstanding between the two as much as it, because I don't see vulnerability and arrogance as being the same thing or being mistaken for something, for being the same thing, because they're diametrically opposed to each other. Arrogance is always defensive.
So if somebody thinks you're arrogant, they feel you're always being defensive?
No. I'm not dealing with what people think you are. I'm talking about the action of being arrogant, not being thought to be arrogant.
Okay. All right. Got the difference.
Okay? Because
Right.
boldness is misinterpreted as arrogance. If I
Okay.
stand up and say that Jesus does not exist, then that's a bold statement of truth. Yet, how in the world can you be so arrogant as to say something like that comes from the mouth of those who are defensive about Jesus?
Hmm. Okay.
That's it.
And
Is that?
Pastor, may I add one thing? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. I'm not sorry. I was just going to add with vulnerability, it is what you allow yourself to be open or become vulnerable to. And point in case, I see vulnerability as a choice. I can be vulnerable to what has always been said about the African. And I can, in my vulnerability to what has been said, I can deny my divinity. I can desire to be more like the European. I can cast off all of what's being taught right now and say, no, I want to be more like the European because I'm vulnerable to the stereotype that has been given or assigned to what it means to be a Cabelonian. And when I look at vulnerability in that type of example, I see that it is what I'm allowing myself to be open to and what I am choosing at that time to lay myself bare for and receive. And so I just see vulnerability in that light is what I'm opening myself up to receive as opposed to just what is being said. And we have been vulnerable and our eye has been closed so long because we have been vulnerable to what has been hammered into us and ingrained in us through education, religion, the government, the rules, the laws, everything that has been against the Cabelonian, telling us that we are less than. We became vulnerable to that. And then it says, here's the great pathway to what it means to acceptability. We will accept you if you act a certain way, and that's where the term you acting like a white person and all these things begin to pop up because through our vulnerability, we were duped into looking at the shiny object over here as opposed to looking in the mirror and looking at and opening the eye and seeing who we really are. And so that thing of vulnerability hits differently for me now because I now recognize where it can become a tool that can work against me if I'm not aware of what I'm opening myself up to and allowing myself to be vulnerable to, allowing myself to, and I'm going to use the term submissive with vulnerability right here when I'm using this particular example, when I'm allowing myself to be submissive to through my vulnerability. And I hope that resonates. Thank you.
It does. Thank you.
Nicholas?
No, I'm good. My mom said it.
Okay. When we talk about vulnerability to what's being said, think about it. You acting like somebody white when you're talking. They say you talk like a white girl. What is that measured by? That's actually measured by what is expected, what white people tell us they expect of us. And that is dumbing down European mindset. It has nothing to do with who you are as a Cabelonian, but it is buying into the stereotype of being less than because I don't talk the way you talk, or because I don't do the things you do, because I use all this profanity. That does not make you an Cabelonian. That makes you a symbol of what white people say you are. And I'll give you a classic example of that. The heroes to our children are the heroes who were created by white people, by that European mindset. And the heroes who were created by that European mindset are gangster rappers. Criminality has become the symbol of leadership. Going to prison, gangster attitude, disrespect for femininity, all these things that have been embraced as blackness is really whiteness. It was really fulfilling a stereotype of what we were told we are. It has nothing to do with the true attitude of the Babylonian. Neither does it have to do with anything that is culturally ours. It is simply outlier to what Europeans say our culture consists of. And if we really, really do the research, we will find that when the music shifted to disrespect in songs, that's when the disrespect in our communities began to rise. And when you only had street creds, if you were a drug dealer or if you've been to jail, that's when that's when criminality in our communities arose, and they became our heroes. The whole idea of snitching took on a new meaning because snitching once meant that you were telling on somebody because both of y'all in trouble and you're trying to get free from that trouble. However, now snitching is considered to be anything that you report to the police that is illegal. So we have been embraced in our neighborhoods, our communities, an attitude of criminality, a debased we have created a debased culture in our community that has nothing to do with us, but plays into the hands of the enslaver. And every time that there is disrespect for femininity, especially because there's no greater fear among Europeans than their fear of that Babylonian female. Every time that you play into that hand, every time that we use the lingo of the gangsters in the streets, then we are debasing ourselves, and we have to be cognizant of that. And I will, with my last breath, say what I've just said and hold to that, because it is imperative that we not only denounce the criminality, the attitude of criminality in our communities, and the attitude of ignorance, the attitude of being less than. We have to rail against that in order for us to rise to where we were created to be, as opposed to living in the gutters of filth that we have been relegated to by the acquiescence to the lyrics that the white people who control music will only accept from us. I'm done.
I would ask GC. I thought GC had, George, did you have something earlier?
No, I'm good around. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Did we miss anybody else?
Hope not.
Well, I do too, because when we get into a discussion like this, sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to apologize for that. It is not intentional by any means. So I'm done.
Great discussion. Thank you. If there's nothing else to grab our attention, then let's pause here and resume tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. Have a great evening. See you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.